Munich, early autumn. The air was crisp, and the city glowed in gold, the kind of beauty that almost made the noise of the world fade away. Almost. Inside the marble lobby of the Königshof Hotel, the world didn't fade. It strutted in, wrapped in an Armani coat and the confidence of a man who never heard the word no. William Grant, 45, tall, distinguished, a name printed in every major business magazine. Billionaire investor, king of mergers, a man who bought silence with the same ease others bought coffee. He was in Germany for what his assistant called an expansion opportunity. But truth be told, William wasn't here for business anymore. He was here to escape the emptiness his success had started to echo back at him. He walked toward the hotel restaurant, not bothering to look at anyone. His world was made of people who served him and those who feared him. At a corner table, a young waitress placed a tray of empty glasses down. She looked up as he entered. Her name was Emily Carter, 27, American, living in Munich for 2 years, studying linguistics at Ludwig Maximilian University while working night shifts to afford tuition. Her German was flawless, her patience too, until that night. William took a seat, not waiting for a hostess. He ordered in English without looking at the menu. Whiskey. Neat. Emily approached his table, holding the small notepad every waiter carries but rarely needs. Good evening, sir. Would you like to see our dinner menu? He didn't look up. Just the whiskey. His voice was cold. The kind of cold that made people shrink a little. Emily nodded, turned, and walked to the bar. Behind her, William muttered something under his breath, in German, typisch. Amerikanisches Lachen, kein Verstand. Typical. American smile, no brain. The man sitting beside him, another executive, slightly drunk, laughed. She probably doesn't even know what you said, Bill. But when Emily came back, she set the drink in front of him with an even smile and replied, in perfect, elegant German. Wenn Sie ein besseres Lächeln sehen wollen, versichern Sie, ein zu verdienen. If you want to see a better smile, try earning one. The entire table went silent. William blinked, his jaw tightening. The arrogance in his eyes flickered, replaced by something else. Surprise, intrigue. He looked up at her for the first time. Her eyes, green, calm, confident. Her posture, firm, professional, unbothered, no apology, no fear. He leaned back, amused, studying her as though she were a puzzle. You speak German, he said finally. Emily tilted her head slightly. That tends to happen when you live in Germany. The table chuckled awkwardly. William didn't. His lips curved into something between a smirk and admiration. What's your name? He asked. Emily, she said. But you can call me Miss Carter while I'm at work. The men at the table exchanged glances, half expecting her to be fired on the spot. But William didn't explode. He just smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. For the rest of dinner, he barely touched his drink. He watched her. Every time she passed by, his eyes followed like a cat watching something it couldn't quite understand. When she returned to check on their table, he asked in German again, but softer now. You from around here? She raised a brow. No, I'm from Denver. Denver, he repeated, as if tasting the word. And yet you speak German like a native. I study linguistics, she replied. Languages are kind of ... My thing. William smiled faintly. Then you must understand people very well. Emily caught the undertone. She smiled politely. Languages, yes. People, not always, he chuckled. Fair enough. The rest of the night moved on, but the balance of power had shifted, subtly, invisibly. For the first time in a long time, he was the one who couldn't stop thinking. When the bill came, he left 5 crisp €100 notes under the glass. Emily looked at it, then at him. Sir, she said, voice steady. That's too much. He leaned forward. Consider it a compliment. She looked him straight in the eye. I'd prefer a respectful one. And with that, she walked away. William sat back, exhaling through his nose. The other men laughed, trying to ease the tension. But something in him stirred, something he hadn't felt in years. Not attraction, not yet. It was the sting of being seen for who he really was. Later that night, as he rode the elevator up to his suite, he thought about her voice, the calm strength, the precision of her German, the way she didn't flinch. By the time the elevator doors closed, he already knew he'd be back the next evening, and he didn't understand why. The next evening, the same table by the window was reserved under a familiar name, William Grant. The Mater D smiled nervously when he saw it. Grant enjoyed his visit last night, he told the staff. Let's make sure everything is perfect tonight. Emily tried to hide her sigh. She'd spent half the morning convincing herself it was nothing. Some arrogant man from Wall Street who thought his money could buy charm. She'd seen hundreds like him, businessmen who forgot the world didn't revolve around their wallets. Still, something about last night lingered. Not his face or his voice. It was the look, the surprise in his eyes when she spoke German. That small moment when the power dynamic flipped, if only for a heartbeat. She didn't expect him to come back. But he did. William walked in at exactly 7:30. His suit was darker this time, his expression lighter, too light, like a man pretending not to care too much. He saw her immediately, and that smile returned. The one that said he was used to getting what he wanted. "Good evening, Ms. Carter," he greeted, his tone almost playful. Emily kept her posture. "Good evening, Mr. Grant, the usual table?" "I was hoping you'd say that." She guided him there, silent, professional. Inside, her stomach tightened, not from attraction, but from the uneasy awareness that she had caught the attention of someone she couldn't afford to. The restaurant was quieter tonight, the city lights of Munich stretching behind the windows like spilled gold. A pianist played softly in the corner. William glanced at her notepad. "No pen today?" She looked down. "I memorized the menu. Impressive," he said. "But I suppose a linguistics student has a good memory." Emily froze. "How do you know that?" He smiled faintly. "You told me last night." She didn't remember saying that. He had noticed, listened, filed it away. She nodded stiffly. "Then I suppose your memory's good too," he grinned. "Only when the conversation's worth remembering." Emily turned away before he could see her roll her eyes. "I'll get your drink." At the bar, she could feel his eyes following her. The bartender, a friend, Anja, leaned in. "That guy again?" "Yeah," Emily whispered. "Thinks he's charming," Anja smirked. "The rich ones always do. Just keep it professional." "I always do." When she brought his drink back, William gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Sit for a moment. I promise not to bite. I can't sit with guests, Mr. Grant." He tilted his head. "Then consider it a linguistic exchange. I'll speak German, you correct me. Educational." She hesitated. Rules were rules, but the way he said it, half joking, half commanding, made her pulse quicken in irritation. Still, she sat, just for a moment. William began speaking in German. His accent was terrible, his grammar worse. She corrected him, calmly, firmly. He laughed at himself, genuinely. "My God, I sound like a tourist." Emily smiled despite herself. "You sound like someone who thinks he's better than the language." He looked at her for a long time, not offended, not angry, just intrigued. "You know," he said, "people don't usually talk to me like that. That's probably why you need to hear it." A pause. The pianist played something soft, melancholic. William leaned forward. "You remind me of someone I used to know." Emily didn't ask who. She didn't want to know. But something in his tone, almost wistful, softened the air between them. She stood. "Enjoy your drink, Mr. Grant." He didn't stop her. He just watched her walk away, a strange look in his eyes. Not hunger, not lust, but something quieter. A man realizing he was no longer the center of the room. The following days followed the same pattern. He came, sat at the same table. Always asked for her. Sometimes she ignored him. Sometimes she couldn't. Other waiters whispered. "He's obsessed with you," one said. Emily brushed it off. "He's bored." That's all rich men ever are. But at night, lying in her tiny apartment overlooking the Isar River, she caught herself replaying their conversations, not because she cared, but because he had made her feel seen, even if for the wrong reasons. By the fifth visit, it wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was a storm she could feel gathering behind his polite smile. One evening, the restaurant was nearly empty. William came in late, no entourage, no assistant, just him. His tie was loose, his expression tired. "Rough day?" she asked, before she could stop herself. He nodded. "You could say that. Sometimes the things that make you rich also make you miserable." She poured his whiskey. "Then maybe you're investing in the wrong things." He gave a small, genuine laugh. "You always have an answer." "I study words," she said. "They usually have one." For the first time, his smile faded. He looked out the window at the rain beginning to fall against the glass. "My wife says I hide behind words, contracts, promises, excuses." Emily froze. Wife. The word hit like cold water. So he was married. Of course he was. She stepped back. "You should probably go home then." He looked at her, eyes searching. "You think I should?" "I think someone's waiting." He nodded slowly. "Maybe, but I keep finding reasons not to go." Emily didn't reply. Something about that confession, so calm, so wrong, made her chest tighten with a mix of anger and pity. He reached for his wallet. "Let me buy you dinner, Emily." "As a friend." She shook her head. "You're a customer." "That's all." He smirked faintly. "Then I'll come back tomorrow." As a customer. That night, she left work later than usual. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective. She walked home alone, clutching her coat. Every streetlight seemed to hum with questions she didn't want to answer. Why did his words bother her so much? Why did his presence linger like a song she couldn't turn off? At the corner, her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Emily Carter?" The voice was familiar, deep, calm. Her stomach dropped. "Mr. Grant? How did you get my number?" "I called the hotel. Said it was urgent." "That's not appropriate," she said sharply. "I know," he replied quietly. "But I wanted to say something before I fly to Zurich tomorrow." She sighed. "What is it?" A pause. The hum of rain. Then his voice, low and unreadable. "You're the first person in years who's made me wonder who I am." And before she could respond, the line went dead. Emily stood there, phone trembling in her hand, the night pressing in around her. 3 days passed. No calls, no visits. No William Grant. Emily felt the absence like a pressure that lingered in the corners of her mind, not because she missed him, but because part of her expected his return. She told herself it was better this way. But on the fourth night, just as she was finishing her shift, the Mater D appeared with a note. "Someone left this for you," he said. Emily opened it. A simple message, handwritten in elegant cursive. "Dinner. Just one. As two people who like language. W room 503. Tonight." She stared at the note for a long time. It was absurd. Inappropriate. A line she had no business even approaching. But still, she stood outside room 503 that night, fists clenched at her sides, heart hammering. She knocked once. The door opened. William stood there. No suit jacket, just a dark shirt, sleeves rolled. The room smelled of cedar and expensive whiskey. He smiled, but it was smaller now. Less performance, more hope. "You came. I shouldn't have. But you did." She stepped in, slowly. The suite was massive, the table set for two, food already served. "This is too much," she said. He poured wine for her, gently. Then let it just be dinner. 2 people. No titles. She wanted to scoff, but part of her wanted to believe him. They sat, ate, talked. He asked about her studies, about her family, about what brought her to Germany. She asked nothing about him, and he noticed. "You never ask me about my life," he said softly. "Because I don't want to know lies," she answered. That made him pause. "You think I'm lying to you?" "I think men like you only tell the truth when they lose control." William leaned back, studied her in silence. "Then maybe that's why I keep coming back. You make me feel like I'm losing it." The air thickened. She looked down at her plate, trying to ignore the warmth in her chest, the pull of something reckless and deeply unfair. "You know," he said after a while, "you remind me of what I was like before all this. Before the money. Before the noise. Before you got married?" She asked and immediately regretted it. He didn't flinch. That ended. Emotionally, a long time ago. Not a lie. Not the truth either. She stood. "I should go." He followed her to the door. As she reached for the handle, he said, "You make me feel human, Emily, and I forgot what that feels like." She turned to face him, and for a moment, she let herself believe it. Let herself wonder if there was something real in this mess of words and whiskey and withheld truths. Then she saw it, barely visible, on the dresser behind him. A wedding ring. Silver. Simple. Forgotten. Everything inside her froze. He saw the direction of her gaze, followed it, and in that moment, the illusion shattered. "You took it off," she said, voice low. He didn't answer. She stepped back. "You let me believe something else. I didn't lie. You didn't have to," she snapped. "You just let the story play out the way you wanted it to." Silence. Heavy. Ugly. She opened the door, heart pounding. "Don't come back to the restaurant, Emily." But she was already gone. For a week, Emily said nothing. She went to work, took orders, smiled when she had to. But the hotel restaurant no longer felt like neutral ground. It felt like a trap waiting to be triggered. William didn't come, not once. And still, every time the door opened, her stomach tightened. She hated that part of herself. The part that missed the sound of his voice. The part that wanted an apology or maybe just closure. But it came in the worst way possible. One rainy Thursday evening, she left work early, head down, coat soaked. As she turned the corner to her tram stop, a black car pulled up beside her. She didn't need to see the license plate. "Get in," William said through the open window. She froze. "I told you to stay away. I know. But I couldn't." She should have walked away. Should have screamed at him in the middle of the street. Instead, she opened the door. Inside, the car was silent, dimly lit. He looked. Older, worn. There were deep lines under his eyes. "I haven't slept," he said. "Not since that night. That's not my problem," she muttered. He didn't argue, just stared at the rain-streaked window. "I didn't take the ring off for you. I took it off because I didn't want to be that man anymore. The one who keeps pretending everything's fine when it isn't." She folded her arms. "That's not an excuse. That's a rehearsal." That hit him. He winced. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said. I need to talk to you. Please." She sighed. "You don't need me. You need someone who doesn't know the truth." But despite everything, she didn't get out of the car. They drove in silence. Not to the hotel, but to a small rooftop bar overlooking the river. Empty. Quiet. He'd rented the whole space for the night. There was no grand speech, no manipulation. Just quiet conversation. They talked about books, about her thesis, about how he used to read poetry in college, before everything became numbers. At one point, he reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "My wife wrote this 6 years ago," he said. "I found it in her drawer last month." He handed it to her. Emily unfolded the note. It was short. The handwriting neat and detached. There's nothing left between us but appearances. I don't hate you. I just don't see you anymore." Emily read it twice. "She never sent it," William said. "But she meant every word. That doesn't make this right." "I know," he whispered. "But I didn't come tonight to be right. I came to feel something honest, even if it's ugly." For a long moment, she said nothing. Just listened to the soft echo of rain on glass. Then she asked the question she hadn't dared. "Do you love her?" William looked away. "I used to. Now I think I just respect the version of me that did." Emily exhaled, a long, slow breath that hurt on the way out. And that's when it happened. Not a kiss, not a dramatic lunge, just a slow, desperate leaning into each other. A moment so full of loneliness and confusion that it blurred into something physical, something wrong and real at the same time. They didn't speak. There were no promises, just silence. And when it ended, she stood at the edge of the balcony, looking out over Munich's quiet skyline, wondering what version of herself she had just betrayed. The next morning, she expected the shame. What she didn't expect was the knock at her apartment door. She opened it. A woman stood there, mid-40s, elegant, composed, eyes sharp as glass. "Emily Carter?" She nodded slowly. The woman extended her hand. "Eleanor Grant, William's wife." Emily didn't move. "I think we need to talk," Eleanor said. Zurich felt like another planet. 2 weeks after the accident, Emily took a train across the border, not because she thought it would change anything, but because the silence was eating her alive. She hadn't heard a word, not from William, not from the hospital, and certainly not from Eleanor. But she needed something, closure, proof that it happened, that it mattered. The hospital was a fortress of quiet machines and stone-faced nurses. She asked for William Grant, showed her ID, explained awkwardly that she had been a friend. The nurse scanned her computer and frowned. "You're not listed as a family member." "I know," Emily said, "but I need 5 minutes. I'm sorry." His wife gave explicit instructions. "No visitors outside family." Emily tried to keep her voice calm. "Can I at least leave a message?" The nurse hesitated. "You can leave something in writing. We'll place it in his room." That night, in a dim hostel near the station, Emily sat with a notepad on her lap, blank for an hour. Then, slowly she began. "William, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if I want you to. But if these are the last words I ever get to send you, I hope they're honest. What happened between us wasn't love. I think we both know that. It was pain dressed as intimacy, a need to be understood that went too far. You looked at me like I could save you, but I couldn't even save myself. If you wake up, and I hope you do, I hope you find the version of you that your wife once loved. And if not that, then maybe the one I almost did. I forgive you. Not for what you did, but for being human enough to fall apart in front of me. And I forgive myself too, eventually." Emily, she folded the letter, breathed deeply, then sealed it in a plain envelope and wrote one word across the front: for him. The next morning, she handed it to the nurse, walked out, didn't look back. Back in Munich, life resumed, or tried to. She picked up shifts at a small cafe outside the city center. No luxury, no marble floors. Just tourists, train noise, and anonymity. She finished her thesis, graduated quietly, refused to attend the ceremony. She stopped checking the news, stopped searching William Grant in headlines, stopped hoping the phone would ring. Weeks became months, then years, until one gray afternoon, in the middle of correcting grammar exams in a tiny classroom in Boston, she received a letter. No return address, American postage. Inside, one folded page and nothing else. The handwriting stopped her cold. It was Eleanor's. Emily stared at the letter in her hand like it might burn through her fingers. It had been nearly 3 years. 3 years since she left that hospital in Zurich. Since she walked away from a man she never really understood. Since she buried the part of herself that believed any of it could mean something. She unfolded the page slowly, no greeting. Just ink, deliberate, composed, and unmistakably Eleanor. He read your letter, Emily, not the day he woke up. Not the week after, but sometime during that quiet, bitter stretch of recovery, when I was no longer wife nor enemy, just someone who fed him soup and listened to machines beep through the night. He asked for it. The nurse had tucked it in a drawer, forgotten almost, but he remembered your handwriting. He read it once, then again, and then he cried. Not performative tears, not guilt. The kind of crying a man does when he realizes he's no longer the hero of his own story. I thought you should know that. No cameras, no reporters, no legacy talk. Just a man and a letter he didn't deserve, but needed. Emily read the paragraph 3 times before her hands stopped shaking. The next lines were shorter, sharper. He's no longer the man you knew. He's quieter now, still rich, still complicated, but slower. Less cruel. He never tried to contact you. Said he didn't want to pollute your peace. But I've read your letter too, Emily, and I'm not reaching out as his wife. I'm reaching out as a woman who, like you, knows what it's like to survive proximity to someone like William. Then the final paragraph. I run a private lecture series now. Ethics, language, power. Your letter would be perfect for it. Not as gossip, as truth. If you're willing, come speak. Say what you need to say. It's time you took the story back. Eleanor Emily sat in silence for a long time. The classroom was empty, the walls still echoing with the sounds of the last bell. She looked out the window at the Boston skyline. A new life, a small one, quiet, safe, and now this. An invitation, a reckoning, not to reopen wounds, but to claim them. That night, she opened her laptop, typed 1 line in reply, I'll come, but I won't read the letter. I'll speak from memory. She hit send. The auditorium in Berlin wasn't grand, but it was full. Students, professors, journalists, survivors of silence wearing polite faces. Emily stood behind the podium, hands steady, heart calm. She hadn't rehearsed. She didn't need to. On the first row sat Eleanor, composed as always, but this time there was no armor, only quiet respect. There was no sign of William. She hadn't asked. She didn't want to know. This was never about him anymore. Emily took a breath, looked out at the faces watching her, not waiting for scandal, but for truth. She began. I was 27 when a man tried to make me the solution to a problem he didn't want to name. Some people leaned in. Others shifted uncomfortably. He was powerful, married, charming in that broken, dangerous way that makes people mistake pain for depth. And I was flattered by the attention, ashamed of that, but also angry, because I knew better and still walked toward the fire. She paused, not to collect herself, but to let the silence settle. He spoke in half-truths. I answered in full sentences. He called it connection, but what it really was imbalance, disguised as intimacy. Her voice didn't shake, because the truth had stopped scaring her. She told the story, not with melodrama, but with clarity. The insults, the dinners, the room, the ring, the fallout, the coma, the silence that followed like dust in a burned-out room. And finally, the letter. I wrote him a letter I never thought he'd read. I forgave him in it. I forgave myself too. And somehow, that letter survived. It sat in a drawer while the rest of the world moved on. She looked at Eleanor then, who nodded once, solemnly. And that's what I came here to say. We survive things that no one claps for. We carry stories that don't fit neatly into good or evil. And we grow, not because we want to, but because no one rescues us. She let the silence breathe again. Language is power, but silence is control. And the day I started speaking again, not about him, But without him was the day I stopped being part of someone else's narrative. A quiet hush fell over the room. Then she ended. Sometimes the words we speak in secret become the echoes that judge us. And with that, she stepped down. The applause didn't come all at once. It started slow, then built, not polite, not pitiful, but honest. Like recognition. Outside, the Berlin sky was soft with late sun. Emily stood at the steps, coat in hand, the air crisp. Eleanor joined her. "I wasn't sure you'd say yes," she said. "I wasn't sure either," Emily replied. "But some stories don't want to stay buried." They shared a long, quiet moment. Then Eleanor handed her a folded paper. No envelope. "It's from him." Emily stared at it. "I didn't read it," Eleanor said. "You don't have to either." Emily nodded, took the letter, but didn't open it. Instead, she walked to the edge of the square, held it over a trash bin, and let it go. The wind caught it, lifted it, gone, not in anger, not in bitterness, in closure.